We are always honored to be joined by our very good friend of the ACLJ and of the Sekulows, Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, who had an opportunity to question Secretary Blinken and Samantha Power about this money that is an aid that is still planned on going to Hamas, even after the atrocities of October 7th in Israel and the ongoing atrocities and the kidnapped hostages that have not been released, including Americans. And by the way, that number keeps going up. It seems we find out there are more hostages. So many people seeing the horrendous images of what happened and how these Hamas terrorists really took over like ISIS, or even worse, committing crimes against children, women, men, and the elderly. And Senator Hagerty took it right to Secretary Blinken. And Senator Hagerty, let me ask you this, and thank you for joining us such a busy time in the U.S. and the world. Senator Hagerty, when you went to Blinken, what did he say? It's not like American accountants are on the ground tracking what Hamas is going to do with this aid, or who's going to get it, and whether actual people in need will ever get it.
Well, they want to come to us and ask for billions of dollars in, quote, U.S. foreign assistance to go into the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is controlled by Hamas. I confronted Secretary Blinken with emails that we discovered, internal emails from the State Department. We received these via Freedom of Information Act requests. I entered those into the record, and I recited to him, exactly what they said. There is a high risk that those funds will be able to go to the benefit of Hamas. Hamas is the terrorist organization that just launched a murderous attack on the Israelis and killed over 1,400 people. And included in that number were, some 36 Americans that they murdered. So when I asked Secretary Blinken if he could assure me that the aid dollars that the United States has already sent into Gaza weren't involved in supporting Hamas's attack on October the 7th, he couldn't assure me of that. He doesn't know, clearly. I asked him point blank 3 times. And 3 times, I kept coming back to the question as he kept trying to evade it. He could not answer me that American dollars aren't basically funding both sides of this war. That's the last place we want to see American taxpayer dollars spent. I don't want to see a dime of American taxpayer dollars going to Hamas so that they can use that again in turn to kill more Israeli citizens and include Americans in that as well.
Senator, one of the things I'm concerned about is that they appear to be, the administration appears to be totally tone deaf. They announced yesterday that they're starting a task force on Islamophobia. That was the same day that Christopher Wray testified before Congress, saying that the 60% of the hate crimes that are religiously motivated are against Jews. 60%, and they only represent 2.6% of the population. And the response from the White House on that is, let's have a task force on Islamophobia. It appears they're totally tone deaf.
Yeah, I think, it's been called out in the media. I did an interview yesterday with Larry Kudlow. He accurately coined it. He basically said what they're doing, they meaning the Biden White House, are pandering to the far left extreme radicals in their own party. These are the ones that are doing the pro-Palestinian, rallies in the cities and on our college campuses. These are the people that are, basically aligning themselves, with Nazism, and they are so desperate to maintain this quote broad coalition of fringe groups and activist groups that have, certainly radical views based on, the where most of America is, but they're willing to do anything to pander to them to keep them in the boat, so to speak. So that in, critical congressional districts, like in Michigan, they're able to continue to use these people. And they're going to the White House. These groups are going to the White House. Pressure groups are going to the White House saying, look, we helped you, Joe Biden. We went door-to-door campaigning for you, Joe Biden, back in 2020 to help you win that election. And you're going to lose us if you don't start catering to us. And that's where you see, Kamala Harris come out with this pandering and creating these working groups and all this sort of thing. They will not even say who's at the root of all of this. That's Iran. It's very difficult to get the White House to even acknowledge Iran's role in all of this. And if you saw what happened, with Hamas, that was Iranian funding, that's Iranian technology, that's Iranian know-how that was deployed to murder over 1,400 Jews.
And we weren't planning on it. We were together, Senator Hagerty, when this attack occurred. And it was shocking, the brutality we kept seeing on our phones, the reactions that were being made, and just that we had never seen Hamas take it to the level of ISIS or maybe even surpassing ISIS. And then, we see Christopher Wray testify very openly and honestly about the issues Jews are facing right here in the United States, that this group of just 2.4 million people face 60% of the religious hate crimes. And the next day, the vice president is announcing this council on Islamophobia. I think that, one, Americans, even after 9/11 showed, we don't have a major problem with Islamophobia. There are radical extremists on Americans who have bad views on people, but most Americans are good people and respect you if you respect them. Why, again, is it purely politics that they announced this because they don't want to lose the votes from the squad?
Jordan, I think you've hit the nail on the head. That's all I can imagine it is. It's politics. It's responding to pressure groups in the extreme radical left that are pushing this. This is un-American, what they're talking about. We have Jewish citizens that are fearful of their lives here in America. Even one of my own colleagues, suffered a severe threat, Jackie Rosen. And we've got to bring this under control instead of pandering. We need to be standing strong with Israel and with our Jewish neighbors right here in America. It's totally unacceptable when you have these threatening protests taking place in our cities and on our college campuses that are making, young Jewish people, elderly Jewish people, anybody of that faith, deeply concerned. And when Christopher Wray comes out, as you aptly mentioned, and highlights the fact that the vast majority of these hate crimes in America taking place on American soil. I don't condone any hate crime. You know that. We're against that
right.
at every level. But the disproportionate impact of that on our Jewish citizens and the fact that it's gone up over 400% since October the 7th is alarming. And we need to be doing something about that.
Senator, there is a movement in the House, passing the House of Representatives, a bill that's going to be a standalone, or at least that's the plan, standalone for aid to Israel. The Senate side, your side of that, Congress, some have said we'd rather have that combined with Ukraine. What's your view on that? My view is get the aid to Israel as quick as you can, and I'm not opposed to aid to Ukraine either. But I mean, it's just I understand why you'd want it stand alone. But what's your sense of that?
No, I think the House has read it right. There's broad support in America, forgetting the radical stuff coming out of the White House. Broad support in America to get this aid to Israel right now. We're watching this unfold on television. We want to see it come to an end. We want to see it come to an end quickly and get the Israelis the support they need to do the job that they know how to do.
Senator, we are working closely with hostage families. And in fact, next week we're going to be in Washington with those families, and we're working with your staff for you to be able to meet with some of them. These are representatives of the families that are hostages, mothers, fathers, brothers. I mean, they're making it. This is the first time it'll be Israelis coming. This situation with the hostages has complicated a lot of what's going on in the Middle East right now because there is a lot of pressure on Israel not to go into full tilt war here and rather, give this kind of ceasefire to get this worked out and see if we can get the hostages out. That never tends to work. What's your sense of that on that front?
I'm completely sympathetic to the concern. I think this is also by design. This is why Hamas took the hostages.
Exactly.
I think Iran has, demonstrated their control over Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran was the one that, Iran trained Hamas. They've armed them. They funded them. So I think this is part of the Iranian playbook. And the Biden administration has demonstrated they're willing to put a massive price on the heads of hostages. The $6 billion package that came through put a $1.2 billion price tag on the heads of every American. So we've incentivized the taking of hostages. We've therefore complicated immensely what the Israeli IDF has to do as they move in to try to free the hostages at the same time put Hamas out of business. But they've got to do both. And it's dangerous. It's complicated. And Hamas wanted to make it more dangerous and more complicated.
I know how serious you take it, how serious your team takes it, your staff. You were immediately on it, making sure Israel was going to get what it needed. These programs like the Iron Dome are joint programs that assist both Israel and U.S. troops on the battlefield. And we are just grateful to have you battling for the United States and for Israel, our ally, in the United States Senate, not just for Tennesseans, which we are, but for all Americans. Thank you for joining us, Senator Hagerty. It's such a busy time in our country.
Absolutely. Thank you.